Issue 2, Stormbringer magazine with 10 new gut rippers for the armies of destruction. Let's build, paint, and check them out. Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games, and today we're going to be reviewing Issue 2 of Warhammer's Age of Sigmar Stormbringer, the new Hachette magazine. We're after getting Issue 2 and we're after painting up 10 brand new Oruks, so join me as we have a look at what's inside. So I've the entire minis painted up and good to go, but before we go into the minis, let's have a look at the actual magazine itself. Now, because it's issue 2, we're still getting a kind of an introduction to the whole universe of Age of Sigmar. So as you can see here from the first page, there's 4 specific realms. There's the realm of life, realm of metal, realm of light, and realm of death. And what's interesting is it would take decades for a single mortal to go from one side of the realm to the other side of the realm, and as you reach the edges of the realm, the magic gets more intense, so even if you manage to get there, you mightn't live very long. There's also the Cosmos Arcane, so all these realms are actually attached to each other. They're separate but attached, because as it says here, the realm of light can still shine light on the other realms. And finally, there's the realm of chaos, which is essentially hell. It's not a place you want to be, with seas of boiling blood and whatnot. This is the Grand Alliance of Order. So you have, of course, the Orders of Chaos and the Orders of... the Grand Alliance of Chaos and the Grand Alliance of Order. So this one goes into Order. So it has a little bit of information here on the Stormcast Eternals. There's also Sylvaneth, which are kind of like ancient forest spirits who guard the natural places of the mortal realms. And you have something called the Cadran Overlords, which I believe will be here later in the issue, which are basically the Lords and Masters of the Sky. And you have the Grand Alliance of Destruction, not Chaos, Destruction, where basically they're comprised predominantly of orcs in this issue. So you have the Ironjaws, which are kind of the classic orcs, or Oruks as they're known now, which are more kind of squat, hunched over type of fellas. You have the Gloomspite Gits, which are kind of like small little goblin things, which are horrible and nasty and vicious. And you have the Cruel Boys, which seem to be the new faction from Age of Sigmar, which are the guys that we painted today, which are the most vicious and cunning of all the Oruks. We have here the Cruel Boys Gut Rippers, so allows you to kind of create some of the names. And what's cool about these guys as well is it's not the same shield over and over. The shields are actually quite distinct, including one fella who has an eye patch, literally has an eye patch on his shield. So I thought that was a cool little thing. Same thing here, it allows you to kind of do more kind of character creation, Cruel Boy names, things like that. So there's the build guide, which as there's 10 minis, there is a fair bit to it. It goes into some of the rules of the game as well, with armor saves and units, and it gives you kind of a little scenario called the Hunt in which you can play such. It also has what's coming up next, and you have basically a kind of a victory between either the Stormcast Eternal Knight Arcanum or the Cruel Boy victory, depending on what way your games have gone. So that was issue 2. So let's have a look at the actual minis themselves. Now, this was, I would have to say it was quite a difficult but also quite a pleasure paint. I still struggled with the skin of the Oruks. I have one model here, which is just in the standard green. For tabletop painting purposes, I found that this worked best for me. But you still have little slight pieces here where you join them together. Now, you could always put in a little bit of green stuff and just make up that gap. But for someone who's like myself, who's an average painter but just happy to play, they went together very well and they were very interesting to paint. Now, the shields are all very distinct. So this one has the tongue coming out of it. I put kind of gold on the eyes just to make them stand out a little bit more, and just did a bit of a dry brush with lead belcher. But they're very, very interesting models. You know, I mean, the design in these things were great. Now this is the fella. I used a kind of a wash on this guy, a Bealtan green. So his skin came out, again, a tad darker than his cohort here. Now, like I said, it's personal preference, but I kind of liked the clean baked aspect of it, because I'm going for a kind of a desert base with these guys. The Stormcast Eternals that I've painted before all have these kind of deserty kind of bases. So because I'm going to be supplementing this with my kind of my other collection of Stormcast Eternals and some of the magazines I have from Mortal Realms, I wanted to kind of have a similar base. So they're very swampy, but because I'm going for a kind of a desert thing, they're not going to be mucky and slippy and slidey. They're going to be kind of dry and baked. So I decided to stick with the normal Orruk green, and I'll be very sparing with the old Bealtan wash. So, like, they all come in different aspects. Like, every single model is posable and unique and has a different shield. I tried to I did a Rhinox hide on the leather, and I tried to do a bit of a Mournfang brown on the edges to layer it. The paint that I used for the stitching, things like here, is just Zandri dust, but I'm quite happy with the results. These were fun to paint. I'd never really painted Orruks before, so like I said, it was a bit of a challenge, but I did enjoy it, and I'm quite happy with the way they came out. Now, depending on your wet palette, like I said, if you wanted to put them into a kind of a wet swamp, they would probably suit better than if you kind of put an Agrax Earthshade wash all over them. But me, being awkward, decided to go for a kind of a desert kind of aspect. So now this guy, I'm just after noticing I forgot to do his other eye, so I'm going to go back and fix that later. But I just did a bit of Mephiston red for their eyes. But like I said, I'm quite happy with how they came out. The shields, in most cases, I would recommend that you paint the shield in its entirety before you attach it to the models, because there's no way you'll be able to get a brush in there effectively if you're going to paint them completely in one go. Like some of these models, like the poses are excellent. You know, they're in various different stances of battle. They have, you know, every single shield again is different. Even the armor, it's very ragtag, very kind of put together. But like, they are literally like swamp denizens. I mean, this one now is a particular favorite of mine, because it's very kind of 300 Spartacus type of job like that. He's behind the shield, he's got the spear over, so it's a proper kind of shield wall type of thing. Now, I've just recently painted this, so this is why that's still a bit fresh. I'm using what's called Martian Iron Earth to get the cracks in the base. So I'm kind of painting it orange and yellow, and then I'm putting this stuff on it, leaving it overnight. But because his base is very kind of earth swampy, and I needed to kind of go into a deserty kind of sandy type of thing, I'm just putting what's called Martian Iron Crust on top of it. Now, that still doesn't stop me putting a little bit of vegetation in it, but that's why his foot there is still a little wet, but that's just because I'm literally just after finishing painting them. This was the guy I was talking about earlier, that I like the way that the shield reflects the actual Orruk, because he's only got one eye, and his shield has an actual eye patch, so I thought that's a nice little kind of cool little thing. He also has a dagger here at the side, so I mean, this poor guy obviously has little to no depth perception because he's only got one eye, but nevertheless a really cool looking Orruk, and something that I'm quite happy with these guys. We have another fella here as well, which is again not quite the 300 stance, but he's still hiding behind his shield. But especially fellas like that, if you want to kind of paint the shield, I would suggest you paint it before you attach it to the guy. But again, they're just magnificently sculpted models. I mean, this guy even has a scar across his eye, so he's a very beat up face. So I mean, these are just amazing Orruks. I much prefer these guys to the Iron Jaws, which are kind of the big huge yellow monster armor ones. And of course we have here, this is the leader, so as you can see by his little hat. So you kind of have two kind of killer bosses, and this fella is more surveying the battlefield type of thing. And again, he's some vegetation, and it's still a bit wet because I'm trying to cover up and make it match the actual palette of the battlefields that I'm going to be putting these guys on. But nevertheless, it was a real pleasure paint and a real kind of joy to assemble these. They were very well made. They're, I think, some of Games Workshop's newer models. They're only 2 or 3 years old. A lot of them came out in the Dominion box set, but I have to say, very enjoyable experience. A great value issue as well, because issue 2 is only, I think it was £8 in the UK or something, but it was only €9 here in Ireland. But nevertheless, very happy with these and how they came out. So if you want a proper force of these lads, I would suggest that you pick up a couple of issues for it, because these guys would work best in a group, in a kind of a big, huge, dirty melee mob. And as you can see, it's a very impressive force. They're a very disorganized mob. I mean, I don't know how cleanly or well these guys would fight in their actual lore, so it could be a bit higgledy-piggledy, but that is a very interesting kind of thing to look at, in the sense that they're not all fellas with swords across their chests type of thing. They're all, it's a mob. It's a mob that's going up to kind of do horrible, scary, horrible things to your Stormcast Eternals or any other forces of order you may have. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was issue 2 of Stormbringer, a fantastic value issue, and one I would thoroughly recommend. And yep, if you're a model painter, these are brilliant to practice with. If you're someone who's an actual gamer, it's an excellent way to get a large force of Orut for a good price. So until next time, this is Sean from The Lucky Roll. If you enjoy these videos, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff, and stay tuned for next week as we review issue 3, Painted. Until then, good luck, God bless, and stay safe.